Friends, you and I have been complaining for a number of years now that nobody is buying cars anymore, that we're going to be relegated to a future of nothing but boring crossovers and SUVs, that we wouldn't even have the opportunity to buy a car if we wanted to. Well, I do have some positive news to report from the front. You see, the number of ridiculously powerful V8s that's being installed into a sport utility vehicle has grown by exactly 1. And surprisingly, it does not come from Zuffenhausen. Hell, it doesn't come from anywhere in Stuttgart. It comes from Ingolstadt. There are a number of things that make an SQ7 an S, biggest being what you are looking at right there, a 4-liter twin-turbocharged V8, 500 horsepower and 568 pound-feet of torque. Yes, same engine in A8 as well as RS7. However, Audi, they have a cousin, and we have driven many of them with 4-liter twin-turbocharged V8. Now, I did speak to some Audi engineers. Yes, the block is the same as in the Cayenne and the Panamera. However, the cylinder heads, the turbochargers, and the cooling system changes. Like, for example, this one has a very specific to the SQ7 quad exhaust. Now, that goes through anything you want as long as it's an 8-speed automatic, and yes, this is an Audi. So it's a Quattro, which means it drives all 4 wheels. In terms of usable numbers, MPG, it's a big twin turbocharged V8, so 15, 21, 17, but towing is pretty good, 7,700 pounds. And then performance figures, VMAX 155 miles an hour and 0 to 60, 4.3 seconds.
5,291 pounds is 2,399.96 kilograms.
Put another way, this weighs about 500 pounds more than a 4-cylinder basic Q7. With that. Oh, that's really good. What stands out here is that 568 pounds of torque, very usable between 2,000 and say 4,500 RPM, or just get aggressive in straight lines, and God, does it sound wonderful when you do that. There is an insane amount going on underneath this vehicle, but let's start with the basics that come from the standard Q7, 5-link suspension front and rear. From there, the air ride has been tuned for this specific S application. Then there's a computer that networks all the disparate suspension systems together, so like, for example, the ABS and the traction control know what each other is doing. That's important for unique systems like a 4-wheel steering system that is fitted as standard to all SQ7s. Now, this system has a couple of unique attributes. Number 1, it can turn up to 5 degrees either in the same direction or the opposite direction as the front wheels. The line of demarcation is 35 miles an hour. However, the system back there, it's fully electronic steering, which means it's powered by a motor and a battery. However, that battery can recuperate some of the energy from the moving wheels and recharge itself. Now, there is something else that can be layered on top of all of this, and that is a sport package that includes 3 things. Number 1, red painted calipers. Number 2, a Quattro Sport differential. This is very similar to what we saw in Evos many years ago, where it can add 10% of the torque to the outside wheel either side. And then most importantly, considering what this vehicle is, active roll stabilization. And think of this as an active roll bar that has an electromechanical unit attached to it that can counteract pitch from either side in a vehicle that is almost 5,300 pounds. Now, this is very similar to what we saw in the GLE 53 AMG in that it is a 48-volt system. But where the two vehicles diverge, the AMG GLE 53, the entire car is a 48-volt electrical system. In the Audi, the suspension is a 48-volt electrical system. Let's you and I try that rear wheel steering on a road where we can make some heads or tails of it. And here's a very aggressive turn. Actually, I didn't trust it there. I braked too hard going into it. I could have went in at a higher speed. It's as if this is a shorter wheelbase vehicle, which is kind of the logic of a rear wheel steering system. But here it does aid a little bit in the ride quality in that there is some control over the pitch of the vehicle. So you don't get so much side to side, which I do believe would help with the overall driving quality around town, especially when you consider the purpose of this vehicle, which is to move the rugrats and the dogs around, and they wouldn't be thrown from side to side as you drive more aggressively, no matter what the road is. Aside from the engine, what we discussed underneath the car, what makes an SQ7 an SQ7? Well, first there's the exterior design. The grille, the front bumper, the rear bumper, as well as the rear spoiler all change. Then the trim outside the car is changed to the stunning satin finish aluminum, including the mirror fairings. Then inside brings about the third biggest change behind the engine and suspension, and that's the front seats. 14-way sport seats. There's some sort of fancy leather on here. They have a special name for it. But what you and I need to know is A, it's nicer, and B, it's diamond stitched, kind of like a Bentley. Then to cap off all the interior changes, there's a different steering wheel. Now there is something called a black optic package. It's very similar to the night package that we see on AMGs where it blacks everything out on the outside of the car. But here, Audi went to such lengths to make this stunning satin finish aluminum. I don't understand why you'd pay extra to have black trim. You know what? Comments below. Aluminum trim or black trim? It's definitely a trade-off between how comfortable the ride is and sporting intentions of the driving dynamics. You can definitely tell it's closer to the sporting side of driving dynamics, but they've definitely still dialed in some comfort. So it's not exactly an X5M in terms of intensity. Yes, it is indeed that time again to play your favorite game, Mind the Options game, with today's contestant, something we have not featured on the game in over 4 years. An Audi, this one a very special Audi, a 2020 Audi SQ7 Prestige for a base price of $90,400. Now, a huge hinweis here. There will be a very short run of the 2020 model year of the SQ7. Most of them will be the 2021 model year. Will have a higher base price by about $800. To that we add a stunning shade of Matador Red. Now, I did special order this one. They wanted to give me a gray one. I don't think gray would look very good, so I specifically asked for the red and got it, and thankfully I did because it is a bargain. $595. Absolutely transforms the car and works well with that aluminum trim. To that we add the Volcano leather interior, which is standard, but more importantly, this is finished in rotor gray leather with rock gray stitching. That is $0. Now, if this car were fitted with the Sport package, which is that Quattro Sport differential, the active suspension, and red brake calipers, that would be an additional $5,900. I would suggest it. This one doesn't have it. The Audi product manager I spoke to about it says about a third of them will be fitted with it. This car is fitted with carbon inlays. Normally, I am not a carbon fiber dash person, but here it looks wunderbar, $750. This car is fitted with laser headlights, $1,650. And then last, but certainly not least, you know how in the Porsche and Mercedes episodes we talk about the Burmester audio system? Well, there is no such thing as a Burmester audio system in an Audi. Instead, it is a Bang & Olufsen 3D surround system. I may go so far as to saying it's almost better. So well worth it at $5,000. So much so, I'd say the stereo over the Sport package. To that, we only add the destination handling, $995, for a total retail price of $99,390. There are two unique aspects about the screen, and to understand that, let's go into the main menu here. And then you notice that it's not simply touch sensitive. So if I hit just phone here without really pressing it, or hit media here without pressing it, like in most cars, that would actuate something. Here you actually have to hit it with some force. And what happens is there's a hammer behind the screen that taps the screen to give you feedback. Now, in addition to the tiny hammer trick, there's also an audible feedback. So let's try that again. Hit Apple CarPlay. And what that does is it gives me a little click every time I hit the screen. Now, of course, I prefer hard buttons, knobs, and toggle switches. And here, there is a good complement of that. There is still a real radio knob, one for volume. You can use it to scroll through radio stations as well as tracks, so side to side. And then there are real buttons as well as scroll wheels on the steering wheel to control infotainment, media, radio, as well as the Audi signature virtual cockpit, which I have to say has been beautifully updated since the last time that I've driven one of these things. It's funny, I was talking to the program manager of this car on the phone before I drove it, and he was saying that each year they've been adding new virtual cockpit backgrounds to update it as they go along. Now, I will admit I do like the two screens, but if it were me, I would add real rotary control knobs for the HVAC system in addition to this screen here. Again, there's nothing safer than a knob in a car, especially when you consider it something that's 2+ tons. I don't know why I've been doing this so much as of late, but it's time for me to put a bug in your head. Today, we learned that this is very fast, very fancy, and about $100,000. A couple of weeks ago, we learned that the BMW X5M competition is also very fast, a bit faster than this one, very fancy, and can be had for about $130,000. A couple of weeks before that, we learned that the Porsche Cayenne Coupe GTS is also extremely fast, a bit faster than this one, very fancy, especially the one we drove, had like $35,000 in options, and can be had for about $130,000, not the one we drove. That begs the question. These are all kind of the same equation of practical vehicles with insanely powerful engines. Granted, those are a bit faster, but more importantly, the driving dynamics on those are just a wee bit sharper. However, this $30,000 discount, which would be very hard for a Dave Ramsey cheapskate like me to say no to, which is why I turn this around to you guys. Which one of the three would you choose? How would you have it built, meaning options, and why? Let me know in the comments below or via our social media, MotoManTV all one word, MotoManTV all one word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Until I see you in the next episode, bis später.